Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we've got lots of really interesting sales for the vintage collection. The VC20 Canadian Yoda, a kind of beater example of one of those sold, lots of graded items, and I even found a vintage collection prototype that is really cool. And you never know what you're going to find on eBay. There are some really cool items on there. So thank you to those of you that watch the channel regularly. Don't forget to leave me a like if you do enjoy my content. All right, so here's everything that's sold probably in the last 4 or 5 days. We're going to start off with this seller. I have never bought from this seller, full disclosure, but it seems like this seller has been listing a lot of really nice unpunched TVC 1.0 at auction. And there's been a few batches that we've talked about in past videos. In this edition, we've got three or four sales. And the first one is a Wicket Return of the Jedi offerless US card. That one sold for $80 on 10 bids. Given, again, that this one I think has been reissued. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Wicket has been reissued. That's not a terrible deal for a TVC 1.0 version. Has Wicket been reissued? I can't remember. My memory's terrible. I might be getting it mixed up with somebody else, but I feel like Wicket was reissued. So for the TVC 1.0 version, you know, that's held up pretty well, given that there's been a reissue for him. Zam Wessel, I found 3 or 4 different data points, and these photos are terrible, which I think does affect the auctions. You know, I always recommend sellers to take it out of the star case before you show it for the photos. But this Zam Wessel sold for $99 plus shipping. And I found 2 other data points. One of them was at $92 and another one at $99. So this one finished right at towards the top end of the range for Zam Wessel. Attack of the Clones VC30. And so that one is kind of going right now for Zam Wessel is about $100, give or take. Kit Fisto, unpunched US card. That's one that always is pretty popular and fairly expensive. This one did have some card wave to it, and that one sold for $132, VC29. It sold for $132 in an auction. And here's a really cool one. Okay, so I think by the time this video airs, the rest of these will be sold. I just sent it out to my Patreon supporters because I think it's a good buy. And this seller in China sells like pre-production prototype type, unpainted prototypes, things like that. I bought from this seller in the past. It takes a while to get there, to get to your house, but absolutely a trusted seller. And he or she had the Vintage Collection Jabba the Hutt action playset, the figure in a test shot mold. And so these are like defects from testing out the equipment. And the seller had 9 available. 6 of them have sold. And I literally just sent this out to my Patreon supporters, and one of them already bought one. So there's 2 left as of the making of this video. But I'm guessing by the time this video airs that the other 2 will have sold. But this is a really good candidate to send in to Collector Archive Services for one of their custom cases for a test shot prototype Jabba the Hutt from the Vintage Collection. And, you know, obviously it doesn't have the arms, but this is kind of a really cool test shot. And, you know, when they're testing out the equipment, sometimes the molds will be defective or there'll be slight blemishes. And so whoever sold this, they just hold on to them, you know, and then sell them on eBay. And they do that for a lot of Black Series figures, other toy lines like some of the superheroes and things like that. But I just thought it was a really good deal for $100 and, free shipping with a eBay speed pack. And it does take a while to get here, but you get this in hand, you send it to CAS, they can encapsulate it and grade it as a test shot prototype. And I think you've added a lot of value to it. So very cool item. It's just hard to get any modern Vintage Collection pre-production. You see them occasionally in the Facebook groups. One of my buddies, Frank, has a really nice collection of pre-production Vintage Collection, as well as like Power of the Force and some Power of the Force 2, and a few others. So, but just in general, you just don't see a lot of pre-production Vintage Collection on eBay. And when I saw these, I had to send them out to my Patreon supporters. I literally just sent it out like 2 minutes ago. One of them already bought one. So at least as of the making of this video, there's still 2 left. I would imagine that these will be sold by the time, all of them will be sold by the time this video airs. But very cool item for $100. It's just, to me, a screaming deal. Next up, back to regular vintage collection, the carded figures. So this one was a VC64 Return of the Jedi Slave Leia with the prototype FET offer. It did have a litho issue on the front of the card there. It was unpunched, but because of that litho issue, you know, obviously that's going to bring down the price a little bit. But that one still sold for $220 despite that little litho tear. So, you know, that's holding up fairly well, really, for a figure. There's a nice close-up here. So somebody tried to take off the price sticker again and cause more damage than it was worth because, you know, if you leave the price sticker on, it's better. It's better, in my opinion, than having the litho tears to the actual item. And the grading companies, not that you want to grade this, but I'm just saying that if you were looking at an item, whether it's vintage Kenner or a modern vintage collection, if it's got a price sticker on it, the grading companies don't take off for it unless there's evidence that it was attempted to be peeled off, causing litho damage to the actual item. So just leave the price stickers alone. And this is one of those examples of that. So that one, again, despite the damage to the front of the card, that still sold for $220. And then here's the Sandstorm Leia. That one sold for $190. The seller had 2 available. One of them did sell at $190, which, you know, this one had quite a bit of edgeware to it, so I'm surprised it sold that high, but it did show as sold at $190 plus shipping on that one. Colonel Kraken is not one you talk about very much, or we have talked about at all. Kind of a weird character, you know, given that this is from TVC 1.0, it's odd to me that they would pick some of these figures, but this is one of the deleted scene Blu-ray figures, so I guess I get it. But you know, I'm really people are gonna make fun of me. I've never actually seen the deleted scenes from Return of the Jedi, believe it or not. I've never seen any of those scenes before. It's probably better that I don't, just to keep my vision of the original before George Lucas started messing with the original trilogy with a lot of these extra scenes and things like that. But you know, these deleted scenes, even those I've never seen before. Colonel Kraken, though, from the deleted scenes, Millennium Falcon crew, that one sold for $60 from Power Droid. The other item from Power Droid that literally just sold today as of the making of this video is a Revenge of the Jedi offerless Boba Fett. So obviously this is from the SDCC box set. That one sold for $120 plus $7 shipping. Good deal on that, really, given that you got the Revenge of the Jedi offerless on that one. Next up, the Shock Trooper. This one has really come back down to earth a little bit. Typically, when people have asked me privately, what's a VC-110 unpunched Shock Trooper worth? And for the longest time, literally every sale on eBay was $110. It didn't matter when. It went on for like a year where it was always $110. Well, now this one has even come back down to earth a little bit. This one in an auction sold for $81, which is a great deal for an unpunched example. And it seemed to be in pretty good shape overall. I didn't really see much wrong with it. Great price on that one for the Shock Trooper from the Revenge of the Sith VC-110. Is that right? Yeah, VC-110. That's how I always remembered. It was $110 because it was VC-110. VC-110 was always $110. So that is not the case anymore. So $81 plus shipping on that. Good deal. Same seller also had an unpunched Jar Jar Binks in really good shape. That's one that's held up pretty well. It has come down a little bit. For a while there, it was up to like 150, 170. But obviously with the slowing market for the vintage collection, $111.50 in an auction for that one, still a pretty good deal. And that's a pretty nice looking character sculpt. I mean, the more I look at that one, I was like, man, that's a really, really good sculpt for the time period. The arms, maybe not so much, but definitely the face. The face sculpt is really good there. Next up, this is probably the lowest price I've seen yet for a fairly clean, unpunched VC 102, excuse me. I can't keep track of the numbers like I should, but for an unpunched US card, Ahsoka, original issue, $93. $93. Remember when these were going for like $600 ungraded, and then graded examples even on Facebook were like $1,800. It is wild how much that one has come back down to earth. $93 for that one now. Now's the time to grab it if you're looking for one. Sand Trooper VC112. This is one we haven't talked about in a while, but I do have another data point there for an unpunched example. $125 free shipping. That's one that's also held up very well despite the somewhat slowing market for vintage collection. $125 is pretty consistently where this has been going. And, you know, there have been outliers where it's been like above $150, but for the most part, I feel like $125 has been a pretty safe and standard number for an unpunched example of VC 112, the Sand Trooper. Another Imperial Assault Tank Commander just sold at auction. And again, it's kind of right in line with recent sales, $90. You might see it a little cheaper here and there, but the Imperial Assault Tank Commander is pretty desirable, and it does hold up pretty well even in auction. So $90 free shipping on that, pretty much standard. The Rey from Rise of Skywalker is another one that's been pretty consistently around $85 lately. This one sold in an auction for $86.99 free shipping. So maybe, you know, once you factor in shipping, maybe about $80 on this one. And that one was a very clean example of the VC-156 Rey. Here's a pretty low price point. I was really surprised, but, you know, this is an unpunched original issue Revenge of the Jedi Salacious Crumb. And, you know, maybe that's the going rate. I can't think of a recent sale for Salacious Crumb. The mouse droid, of course, has always been more expensive, pretty consistently over $500 ungraded. But Salacious Crumb VC66, this has obviously been reissued here recently as part of that Jabba the Hutt action playset. And, you know, I can't tell what's going on in the blister there. I guess it's okay. There's not a lot of good photos of it, but, you know, it looks like maybe there's something going on in the blister. The inner tray obviously is in there, but I can't tell, you know, if maybe there's a ding on the top of that blister or not. But otherwise, it looks pretty clean. I mean, maybe one little edge wear there on the left-hand side. But $420 was the accepted price, final sales price, and free shipping on that as well. So that gives you a data point if you're looking to get the original issue to go along with the reissue. Another sales price for the ESB version of the AT-AT. This box had some damage to it, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner on the front of the box. But, you know, otherwise pretty clean. It was factory sealed, but, you know, a little bit of edge wear here and there to it. That one sold at an auction for $450 plus $112 shipping. So you're still consistently at $550, $560 right now for the ESB version of the Toys R Us exclusive AT-AT. Here is that VC20 Yoda, the Canadian example with the alternate image, the multi-language name pill. Now, this one did have some damage to it, as I alluded to at the beginning of the video. There it is right there. You can see the crease on the back of the card there. And despite that crease, and it was a punched example too, it still sold at $650, which seems to me maybe a little high, just given that we know this one has come down to earth a little bit. There's another crease right there on the left-hand side by the racetrack. To me, I would wager that in an auction, this one would go sub $500 pretty easily. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but this one has definitely come back down to earth a lot. And, you know, I think if you can get for a really clean, high-grade example, you know, I've seen them on Facebook for sale for $700, $800, $900. And this one obviously has a ton of damage to the card. Not a ton, but it does have damage. And I don't know if I'd be spending $650 on that. I think I would wait and be patient, maybe spend an extra $100 and get a super clean example, even for a punched example. So $650 was the sales price on that one, though. Next up, I do have some graded items that sold this week. We had a CAS 85 punched example of General Grievous. This is not the foil Ultimate Galactic Hunt. This is just the regular release. But for a foil CAS 85, that one sold for $200. We had a prototype Fett Armor Boba Fett VC 61. This one was in an uncirculated graded 9.5. That is a very high grade example. And it sold for $278 plus $11 shipping. If this had been sold during the Book of Boba Fett, this would have been triple that price all day long. I mean, it's crazy how expensive they were for this one, and then the VCPO3 rocket firing Fett in that January, February, was it 2023 timeframe? I mean, they were going for just stupid money back then. But this one was an uncirculated 9.5, and still it sold for $278, which I would argue that's a pretty good deal in the current market for that high of a grade, especially. Here is that AFA 9.0 VC115 Darth Vader Emperor's Wrath. I had this one, I believe, in a What to Buy on eBay video, and this one was purchased very quickly thereafter. I don't know if you used an affiliate link or not, but if you did, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate that. Next up is, I just included this one because I thought it was so random that someone graded the SDCC Black Chrysanthemum, and this one was an AFA 9.0, and you can see there, SDCC exclusive vintage collection deluxe series, a box within a box, but it was a 9.0 grade, and that one did sell for $125. This I thought was a beauty, and one of my Patreon supporters did pick this up, so thank you for using the affiliate link on this. This was an uncirculated 9.0 AFA Amazon exclusive of the Mandalorian Shriek-Hawk set, so the 4-pack. I think this is an awesome set. This seller, by the way, Disruptor, is a friend of the channel. He never asked me to show his items or to send them out in Patreon buy it now alerts. I just did it because it was awesome. And when are you going to get an Amazon exclusive in an uncirculated grade? It's just tough to do because that means you got a sealed shipper box of them. I don't know how he was able to do that, but somehow he had a sealed shipper box of these Amazon exclusives. Uncirculated 9.0 gold level. And that one did sell for $350 plus $25 shipping. So congrats whoever got that one. Really great display piece there. That's awesome. And then finally, we did see that Darth Revan sell. This was an uncirculated 9.0. Again, I think one I sent out either as a Patreon buy it now alert, or maybe I had it in a What to Buy video. I can't remember, but somebody did pick that up for $400. And again, that's actually below where I've seen them sell. We've seen them sell as high as $600, believe it or not, for an AFA 9.0 for the Darth Revan. So that's all I really had for this edition of the Vintage Collection Price Guide. Thank you, as always, for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I'll be back soon.